Buffalo After Dark is proud to recommend I Barbecue for You. Pre-orders are suggested by calling 716-880-7667. I Barbecue for You, Buffalo's new barbecue destination.
Just move the coyotes. Don't do another expansion.
Right? It would never cross my mind. So somebody called the house when I was out mowing the grass.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Holy shit, your face is like purple.
Are you still up? Now in our 5th season, it's Buffalo After Dark.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Wednesday night, November 20th, and of course, what that means, we're 1 week away from our Thanksgiving special that we usually do. But, of course, we're in the new place. Got Hanson here with me. How's your week going so far?
It's been good. I had a long day at work today. I'm a little tired, but you know what? I'll push through like I normally do on Wednesdays, like we do normally, and that's pretty much it. And of course, there was a lot of news that came out in the last, how do I say this, 24 hours, 48 hours, somewhere in between that range.
Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting things that have happened, not only just in football, but of course the NHL, Major League Baseball as well. So of course we're going to talk about it. We're here for about the next hour, so if you want to give us a shout, 929-205-6099 gets you on the air. Special thanks to Vinny Torcasio, who's a friend of the show. He actually built me a Bills and Sabres table that I have in my new office space here, so it finally completes the rest of this office.
So, how do you feel about the new place now that it's finally up and running?
Glad all my moving shit's done with, I'll tell you that. It actually wasn't as bad as I thought, but no, this space actually turned out well. So for anyone kind of wondering what it is, of course, I've got one of the two 50-inch TVs right next to me, and then I have the 50-inch in the bedroom, and I got the Behemoth 75 4K in the living room. So yes, we made sure everything was done all nice and well. So although I still will have to probably talk to our friend Doug about taking a look at the amplifier I've got in the living room, because apparently even after I wired it, there's something still going on with it. But other than that, everything else is good. But I will say, watching football and hockey in 4K is a beautiful thing.
It sure is.
Yes, it is. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're going to talk about is probably the most obvious. Oh, how the Chiefs have fallen. Undefeated no more. And I want to say this. The Chiefs fans who talk about how the Bills have a soft schedule, the Chiefs have a way softer schedule than what the Bills have, number one. The Chiefs played shittier against some of the worst teams than the Bills did. And yet, the Bills exposed them. And so it was, of course, a 30-21 win. But how about one of the things, now Chiefs fans are saying, oh, well, the refs were in it for the Bills. The refs missed a 15-yard face mask that could have easily gone against the Chiefs.
Yeah, really.
And the Bills should have had the extra 15 yards on that one play. So, I mean, they weren't calling shit during the game in most cases.
Yeah, in most cases, but on the contrary, if I were a Chiefs fan, because I do have friends who are Chiefs fans, a lot of them, were very respectable. They said, congratulations on the win, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And the funny thing is, my wife and I were talking about that game and saying about how the fans responded after the game. Obviously, it was a big thing that the Bills beat them because they're undefeated no more, thank God. But the entitlement, the arrogance, the narcissism, all coming from Chiefs fans, holy shit. I have never, in the last 25 years that I've been watching football, have I ever seen a fan base this arrogant after a loss? And you know what? This sore loser mentality really tells me two things. One, a lot of the people that comment say, oh, they were favoring the Bills, they were doing this, they were doing that, they were doing a lot of favoring for the Bills. Are you guys for real right now? You guys won 2 fucking Super Bowls back-to-back seasons, and you had Taylor Swift. So why don't you be a little fucking grateful that you have these 2 fucking Super Bowl rings, in the 3 Super Bowl rings, whatever it is, in the last, 5 years that you've had Mahomes. And on top of all that, it's almost like they expected the Bills to lose on it, the easiest way around this. You know what I mean? Right. And one fell swoop is what they were expecting. But then you forget, oh yeah, this is the Bills. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. They got rid of Gabe Davis. They got rid of the woes on their team, and they are
Mhm.
playing much more competitively as a
Yeah,
team.
they actually got better. And look what happened. Stephon Diggs, he's out for the rest of the season with the ACL injury. Look at what happened to Davis. He's out for the rest of the year. So, I mean, it was addition by subtraction. And you look at Coleman, you look at Shakir stepping up. You look at what they've done in terms of getting additional wide receivers. Amari Cooper was a huge steal for what we got him for. And here's the thing, Amari Cooper actually talks about how he loves football again because he's out of that dumpster fire in Cleveland, and he actually enjoys that this team is an actual team.
Well, I mean, considering his comments, I'll take it.
Yeah,
But
same
I
here.
think he also knows that he's the number one guy now moving forward until they sign him. But the fact that Amari Cooper is putting in this much praise on the Bills, it really tells me that he really likes it here. And
Yeah.
I think he's gonna do just fine come January.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the thing I'm the most excited about is now that they're on the bye, they're gonna start getting all their guys back, and then at that point most likely Matt Milano is going to be coming back,
Hmm.
and there's a very strong chance
He's
that
going to
he's
be
going
in.
to, yeah, and he's going to play on not this Sunday, the following Sunday, December
Right.
1st, I believe it is, against the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. That will most likely be his return game because remember, the Bills have 21 days to open the practice window.
Yep.
So that game against San Francisco that's coming up is monumental because then at that point you're getting a stronger linebacking core now that Milano is pretty much back in the mix, which is great.
Yeah, and it's perfect timing because I mean the Bills are starting to get healthy at the right time. San Francisco is still in a rough spot right now. A lot of other teams right now, including the Chiefs, have some rough spots right now when it comes to injuries. And I mean, look at what happened. Of course, I mean the Chiefs. Yes, they were without Isaiah Pacheco, a big running back for them. They were without some others on their wide receiver core. At the same time, they're talking about, oh, well, we should have won against the Bills. I mean, well, one, you've been playing like ass half the season anyways, so I
Yeah,
mean, you're
really.
lucky you actually have like four of the 9 wins that you have. And then on top of it, the Bills whooped your ass straight up. They adjusted. In fact, here's one of the things, and I know we've talked about McDermott before about how he hasn't gone for it. Now, how about in the fourth quarter, 4th and 2, you had two choices. You could either kick the field goal, go up by 5, and then of course the Chiefs have the ball, which they'll do what they do. Or basically, you get the 2 yards, get the first down. What do? Give it to Josh Allen on a design run. What happens? He punches you in the fucking balls, gets 26 yards, goes through two defenders, and scores in the end zone. Finally, McDermott did something ballsy, and I'm glad for it.
Four words. Play of the year.
Yes,
That
100%. That was a
that
great
was
run.
mwah, French
That was
kiss.
beautiful. That was a
It really,
beautiful run. Yes, and finally, and this actually says it, and you remember this from when we were in Seattle. I had to throw this on tonight, the I'm not lazy shirt, because finally McDermott was not lazy in the play calling when it came to that.
wait, what about Seattle?
Oh, this shirt. I got it at the Woodland Park Zoo when we were
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I figured it fits it perfectly tonight because McDermott finally wasn't lazy. He actually had the balls to go for it, and it paid off. And you got the win. And you punched the Chiefs right in the mouth.
And you know what? We were praying for the last like 3 years that it's
Hmm.
become ever since it became a trend with the Bills playing the Chiefs, which was almost a 98% guarantee, whether it was in the regular season or in the playoffs. Either way, how you prospectively put it, I feel like McDermott has learned a lot from his mistakes within the last few years of what not to do against Kansas City. So he learned not to let your guard down from the divisional playoff game a few years ago
Hmm.
at 13 seconds, obviously. He also learned to not put all the eggs in one basket, meaning throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs and then having just for him to miss the catch and then have him throw a bitch fit so he's
Hmm.
gone, and
Yep.
then having to put all your pressure on a kicker. And I think that was something that he really took to heart. And he said, you know what? I don't want to put my team in the playoffs in that situation ever again. So we're going to do this situation and we're going to demonstrate to everybody what exactly have I learned from here. And when it was 4-2, I said, "Oh my God, I hope to God that they make this."
Right.
So here comes Josh Allen. He's running like a madman, like normal, which I love, by the way. And since then, he kind of just whoosh into the end zone.
Yeah.
And that was like what, a 35-yard run, 40-yard run, something
26.
like
Yeah, he got 26 on it.
26. Okay. So realistically, he already got the first. He could have easily just slid and that would have been the end of it. But no, he took it to the house.
No, he just straight up, he's like, I'm going to win this game for the guys. And that's exactly what good players do. And that's what
Exactly.
good teams will do. I mean,
And this is
we know Allen will go out there and he'll show up. And a lot of times when he's played well in the playoffs the last several years, it's the team around him in a lot of cases, aka Stephon Diggs, who fucked up. It's your defense that fucked up. We
well,
can't
yeah.
pin exactly everything on Allen, but he showed what he's capable of, and he took it to the house and basically told the Chiefs, "I'm the man," and that's
Yeah.
how it ended.
It's funny in a way because I remember all those games in the playoffs in the last few years against Kansas City. The first year, 2020, all right, they lost. They'll probably get back eventually because we really didn't know what they were going to be about. They meet 2 years later in 2022 or the following year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They meet the following year. And of course, that was that classic AFC divisional matchup in 13 seconds. And that was probably the best football game, honestly, that I've ever seen in my life with two great quarterbacks going at
yeah,
it. And then the following year, they lost to Cincinnati. And then the last year, they met in Orchard Park. So we all know what happened there. And then
yep.
they're probably going to meet again later this year. I would be almost certain of that in the AFC Championship game, either at Arrowhead or at Orchard Park.
Yeah, more than likely because I mean the AFC for the most part is ass this year. So I mean, especially the East, all we have to do is win one more game and we already win the division. So that's basically where we're at this point.
Yeah, I miscalculated for those who were listening. I miscalculated last week because I was told that all the Bills had to do was beat Kansas City and they win the AFC East. And unfortunately, I was wrong about that. So Tom might be a little bit more right on this one that if they beat the Niners, which I'm pretty confident they can do it. I think they can do it. And I
Yeah,
said that about Kansas City. I think they can do it once they come off the bye. They're more re energized, they're ready to go. Um, it's very well in the wing for them to do that. So we'll have to see moving forward what the second half of this team's going to look like.
yeah. But in all honesty, I mean, right now with how this schedule is set up, it's actually not a bad schedule that the Bills have the rest of the way. So, I mean, except for, I would say the toughest game we're probably going to have is against the Lions. And the Lions are a really damn good team this year. I
Isn't it?
mean, it's great to see them actually playing well. And I will say, Dan Campbell is someone I want to run through a brick wall for.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. Listen, I have a lot of respect for the Lions. I really do.
Yeah.
Their fans deserve this. They deserve to have a good team. And they have waited a long time for this, just same as the
Yeah,
Bills.
like more than a decade,
No, dude, longer than
or
that.
probably like 2 decades at least.
No, longer than that. Maybe try like 5, 6 decades since like the
I mean,
30s.
they finally have a good team. And the thing is that ownership finally was like, you know what, we don't want to suck anymore. They took a chance on Campbell. Campbell changed the culture big time. They started drafting really well. They got a good GM in there now, and they're winning games. And they're like making a lot of noise in the NFC. So it's great to see them doing it. And honestly, I like if it weren't the Bills, I would want Detroit to win it. That's where I'm at right now.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, I want the Bills to win. Of course, that's the hometown team. But if the Bills were to lose for any reason, I would want Detroit to take the title. And I want them to win it all. And actually, Detroit would definitely be on my list of places I would want to visit and watch a game because that would be a fun stadium to go to, I think.
Yeah, and I already mentioned the story with you earlier this year. Brett and I were supposed to do the Lions, but there was a bit of a conflict with Ticketmaster because they would only do resale tickets without a gift card,
Yeah.
so we couldn't do it, and they were too much. But we had a gift card, so we said we can't do this. So it was either the Rams or it was the Colts, and obviously I went to Indianapolis.
Yep.
So unfortunately, that's for Detroit. That's the best. That's the best way I can probably tell that story. But two things. One. I think the Lions are a very, very good team. There's no question about it. I think people overlook the Lions for two reasons.
Hmm.
Because of the tradition of the team and because of the fact that they were so bad for so long and they're not accustomed to being this good of a team. And yet they put in the right players. They built very well through the draft.
Hmm.
They used free agency and they're using trades. They're doing everything they can to kind of put this team together.
Yeah.
And look at them. Like right now, they're the heavy favorites to win the Super
Hmm.
Bowl. And if that happens, good for them. Good
Exactly.
for them.
And one of the good trades that they made going back even right before Campbell came in, how about trading Matt Stafford away and getting Jared Goff? That was a huge change for them.
Oh yeah, but I think very little people knew about that at the time. Like they knew like Goff was a serviceable quarterback. He went to the Super Bowl 2 years prior to that
Hmm.
trade. And then once Stafford went to the Rams, the culture started to change a little bit in Detroit, little by little.
Yeah.
But then they had Amon-Ra St. Brown already. They just needed
Ooh,
to bolster
great
their
player.
offensive line. And by the way, Amon-Ra St. Brown was nowhere near the level he was around
Oh,
this time than he was a
he's
few years
become a
ago.
great player.
Oh yeah, and again, I'm very happy for the Lions. I'm
Yeah,
very
same
happy they're
here.
fans. Their teams, I mean, their fans outright deserve this. They deserve a Super
Yeah,
Bowl.
they do. And their defense has gotten really good over the last several years too. I mean, yes, the loss of Aiden Hutchinson hurts because of the fact with how he broke his leg on the field, and he still got the sack on the play, which was even more impressive. But even with losing him, that defense has really stepped up, and they know how to swarm quarterbacks, and they know how to stop the run, and they're a tough team to play against. So it's like one of those things. If the Bills were to face the Lions in the Super Bowl, which that would be a sweet matchup if that were to happen. I mean, it's gonna probably be the toughest test for the Bills. I,
I think they could do it though.
they
I mean,
could. I think they could. And I think they have enough weapons to do it. I mean, if we look at the QBs, I mean, Allen is better than Goff.
oh yeah.
I would say the run defense similar. I mean, our actual defensive line, I would say fairly similar. I mean, there's some differences here and there, but I mean, it's almost a matchup of two equals in a lot of cases.
See, with me though, Jared Goff is a good quarterback, but I feel like he's not the type of quarter. Like he's a great quarterback. I'm not shitting on him.
Yeah.
'Cause I like Jared Goff. I do think though that he's not fit, in my opinion, at least, to carry them to win a Super Bowl. Like, remember when he was on the Rams a few
Hmm.
years
Yeah.
ago, and he had that really good defense with like Aaron Donald and all those
Right.
guys,
Yeah.
and
It
he
was
had
the
Cooper
defense that
Cup.
carried them.
Yeah, like this is genuinely how I feel about the Lions because Jared Goff on his own is great, but I feel like he's not good enough to carry the team by himself. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Patrick Mahomes type of
Right.
quarterback. He's serviceable, but I feel like he's not at that point.
Right. He had to have multiple players be put around him to actually get him to that next level. Whereas Allen can just do it on his own. Mahomes, he can do it on his own. I mean, the good QBs that are out there can certainly do it on their own. And that's something we've seen. Even Brock Purdy can do it on his own for the most part. So there's a lot of there are some differences there, and I do think between the two QBs, Allen is absolutely the better of the two QBs. If you compare Goff, but as if you look at a total team, though, I mean they're both very comparable.
Yeah, and you know what? I would welcome both Buffalo and Detroit in the Super Bowl this year, but that's just, a talking headline right now. But if it were to come to fruition that Buffalo would play Detroit in the Super Bowl, oh, could you imagine the
Ooh,
party?
that would be a good one.
Could you imagine the party in downtown Detroit and then the party in downtown Buffalo?
Yeah.
People would be bickering at each other out of respect, of course, within the last couple of weeks. And the thing that would really suck, and I'm really hoping that's not the case,
Hmm.
is I'm supposed to go on a cruise in the weekend of the Pro Bowl. From like the 1st of February to the 8th. I'll be home the day before the Super Bowl. And if the Bills play the Lions, I hope that it happens.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to miss a good portion of media day and the coverage. Is I want that shit. I want Super Bowl gear in my collection because I already have the AFC East division and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want a fucking AFC championship shirt or a Super Bowl champions
Same here.
merch in my collection. All of us do.
Yeah, yeah, and it would be great to see what happens. So time will be told. But hey, good job to the Bills. You went in, you kicked the Chiefs' ass, and that's exactly what you needed to do. You're 9-2, and you're on top of the AFC East. And
Yeah.
speaking of some hilarious shit that's come out this week, oh my God, the Jets, they still suck.
Jesus Christ. How many? Stay with me,
Oh,
Tom. What's my favorite thing I say about the Jets every
right,
year?
Jets suck, and yes, they do suck because
Well,
obviously, what happens? There's more drama in the Meadowlands. Joe Douglas got fired this week, finally, which means Aaron Rodgers is going to be going bye bye, most likely
yep.
at the end of the season.
Yep. Say it with me. One, two, three. The Jets are
Jets
stupid.
stupid. Yes, they are. And how about this, man? Now thinking about it, one site actually speculated, should the Jets give Sam Darnold another shot at the end of the season?
Hell
I'm
no.
like, no. He's actually playing well with Minnesota right now.
But it doesn't mean he's gonna stay.
Right.
Because think of it like this: if Darnold were to become a free agent, just knock on wood,
Hmm.
if he becomes a free agent in March and he says, "I'm gonna go back to the Jets," Aaron Rodgers will just simply go to the Vikings. I guarantee
Yeah,
you.
he probably would.
He'll complete the Brett Favre trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he does because he's too stubborn to retire. So that's basically where we're at with him. But oh my
My
God.
my biggest grip on Aaron Rodgers is that he thinks he has all the answers to the world, and whenever nothing goes his way, he has to fire the people around him. And the team, and this acquires to the Jets and the Packers, because both of those teams had him,
Yeah.
is the Packers went through this for many, many years with Aaron Rodgers, and he acts like he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. Like he just rose from the grave on the third day and gave everyone his blessings and just goes back up to heaven. That's not how this works. Aaron Rodgers is the one player in the NFL that nobody should be talking to right now, because the fact is that the whole ambition of the Jets was to have him go to the team and out of desperation traded for him, and the whole plan was to win the Super Bowl. And all
Right.
this chatter, and you know this and I
Hmm.
know it, is they were talking about how they were going to be better than the Bills this year. The AFC was going to be much, much tighter with Aaron Rodgers and company getting more weapons, such as Garrett Wilson, such as Devontae Adams. Magically was going to be better, and yet they don't do jack shit
Right. They've
again.
gotten worse. And they spent more money to get worse. And the Bills spent nothing to get Amari Cooper.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know what? It's amazing to me to genuinely think about this.
Hmm.
It's amazing to me since what, the week before Monday night against the Jets in week
Yeah.
6. So that was what, early October
Yeah.
when that happened.
Yeah. The Jets spent like millions of dollars to get Devontae Adams, and then the Bills only spent 800 grand on Cooper. That was the biggest freaking blowout deal ever. That was great.
Yeah, literally. That was like October 7th was
Yeah.
when they fired him, or when they fired Robert Saleh. So within this 3 month span, 2 month span, I
Hmm.
should say, in late September, early October, Saleh gets fired the week before that big game, which put the Bills where they are now. Then a week after the Buffalo game, you trade for Devontae Adams. And then a week after this past week of losing to the goddamn Colts,
Yeah.
you lost to Anthony Richardson by 1 point. You fire Joe Douglas.
Right. And Richardson ain't doing shit. Sorry, Trevor. I know you love him, but my God.
Oh my God. Like, Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
the Jets
Like,
really
dude,
do suck.
it's so bad, dude, that there was reports coming from Rich Kamichi, by the way, who was an inside reporter for the Jets on SNY. He said some of the organization were surprised that the Jets did not fire both Saleh and Joe Douglas at the same time. Another source told Kamichi that he'd be shocked if the Jets brought back Aaron Rodgers. And stop me if you've heard this before. Players are, quote, checked out. They're not upset or are they not angry and are just waiting for the season to end, according to Connor Hughes?
Oh Jesus! And to think that they're in third place with a 3-8 record. Oh my God! AFC sucks ass this year.
Seriously. And guess what? This is all the stuff. And Woody Johnson also went completely rogue in the
Hmm.
last month and a half, 2 months. And this is according to The Athletic. This is the entire like storyline for the Jets this year. This is the most butt fumble-ish type season that we've seen from the Jets since
Yeah.
the butt fumble.
Yeah.
So,
Really. Yeah. Mark
yeah,
Sanchez, way back. But
yeah.
how pathetic is it that the freaking Dolphins are in second place at 4-6?
Trust me, that's coming soon. So here's
Yeah.
the whole storyline for the Jets this year, just in the last 2 months. Is first, it all started with Salah being fired without consulting anybody, because we talked about this, where Aaron Rodgers demanded Salah to get fired because he was going to
Hmm.
fire Nate Hackett.
Right.
And then Woody Johnson then blocked the Bryce Huff extension back in March, which led him to go to the Eagles. And then Woody Johnson, on the day of the trade deadline, and this is a new report to me, he nixed the trade that would have sent Alan Lazard and a day 2 pick to the to the Cleveland Browns for Jerry Jeudy. And then he refused to sign Hassan Reddick's contract extension demands until it was like the last second. Then he pushed for Tyron Smith and Mike Williams, and so far neither one of them have panned out. And one of them just got traded a couple of weeks ago on the day of the election to the Steelers. And then you signed Devontae Adams, of course. We already know what happened there.
Right.
And then you benched Tony Adams against the staff's wishes. And then Woody Johnson then micromanaged the escalated after forcing Douglas to fire his close friend and assistant general manager Rex Hogan, which is also leading Douglas to reportedly tell the staff, quote, Woody should just fire me now.
The Jets are fucking stupid.
They are.
Oh
The
man.
Jets are stupid. And we say this every time something stupid comes out of the
Right,
Jets.
right. In fact, here we go. Let's listen to a sound clip from Professor Aaron Rodgers, the so-called anointed one. Hi, everybody. This is Professor Aaron Rodgers, the so-called anointed quarterback of the New York Jets. As, of course, we all know, we have to keep everything in line here. So we did have to fire Joe Douglas because he didn't bend down, suck my cock, and enjoy my love juice as much as I wanted him to. Instead, he tries to fire good old Nate Hackett, who's a good old butt buddy of mine who has grown up with me through the Green Bay Packers. And, of course, we know he does absolutely nothing, but he does exactly what I want him to, so we had to keep him and make initially Robert Saleh the sacrificial lamb. Then what we had to do is we had to get rid of Joe Douglas because he didn't bow down to my demands. So basically, the way it goes is that if anyone wants to disobey me and disobey my orders on this team, they're gonna get they're gonna get the skunk weed instead of the actual good ayahuasca. And in the meantime, as for the Jets, I don't give a flying fuck about the Jets because they're my team, and I will make them do whatever the fuck I want. So if that's the way it is, too bad. I don't give a shit if we miss the playoffs. It's all about me. It always has been about me, and it always will be about me. So anyone who is going against anything that I do, fuck you. If anyone wants to root for the Jets, of course. Well, it's all about me, so you're rooting for me, so fuck you too. What the
Oh boy.
Oh shit! How about that for just thinking off the top of my head?
Yeah, that's pretty good actually. But you
Yeah.
know what too? Is the funny thing about the whole thing with the Jets is they're already talking about bringing in a new general manager. I mean, I think you should know this. You know the name Phil Savage?
Yeah, and not
Yeah.
exactly for good reason either.
You know what he was famous for, right?
Hmm.
I want to see if you know this.
All right, so good old Phil Savage, which is
Don't look it up, you son of a bitch.
no, no. I mean, I know he's an author, so obviously there's that. And then
The general
well, he was an author, and then he also was some fucking media personality who apparently is the interim GM. So
No, dude. He was the general manager for the Browns 20 years ago, and this was the guy that drafted Charlie fucking Fry.
which that was a stupid ass draft pick right there.
Oh yeah, and you want to hear something even dumber?
Hmm.
Remember the name Ryan Grigson?
Yeah, I do, and he absolutely sucked ass.
Yeah, he was the general manager for the Colts, right?
Hmm.
He was famous for the wrong reasons. He honestly thought it was a good idea to trade a first round draft pick for Trent Richardson.
Yeah, and look where that went.
It went horrendously. And the Browns got Johnny Manziel in that pick.
Yep.
But it doesn't even matter who they drafted. It's the fact the Colts literally traded for a quote an idea at the time with Grigson being in office. Holy shit. Like you can't wrap your head around this. The fact that the Jets are entertaining the idea of Grigson to be the general
Hmm.
manager just blows my man. It just blows my mind. It
Right.
really does.
Yeah.
It's almost like Woody Johnson is. I feel like Woody Johnson, in a sense, is worse than
Yeah.
Jerry Jones.
Yeah. And Jerry Jones is already pissed off about how Mike McCarthy's handling stuff in Dallas. So, but yeah, Savage, he basically already said Aaron Rodgers ain't coming back. So, okay, there is actually one good thing out of it.
But it also depends who they hire as the full-time general manager.
Yeah, exactly, because he only has the interim tag. So that's where we're at. But yeah, we'll definitely be covering more drama in the Meadowlands as we go forth. But what we'll do, since we're already halfway through the show, let's talk about the Hall of Fame induction real quick. So of course there are there's actually a pretty good nomination class this year, and basically with who would be going in as part of the modern era for 2025. You have cornerback Eric Allen, you have defensive edge rusher Jared Allen. You have, of course, tackle Willie Anderson, wide receiver Anquan Bolden, guard Jari Evans, tight end Antonio Gates, linebacker James Harrison, safety Rodney Harrison, wide receiver Torrey Holt, linebacker Luke Kuechly, QB Eli Manning, defensive end and linebacker Robert Mathis, wide receiver Steve Smith Sr., end and linebacker Terrell Suggs, running back Fred Taylor, defensive back Earl Thomas, place kicker Adam Vinatieri, wide receiver Heinz Ward, running back Ricky Waters, the good old pot smoker that we all remember, wide receiver Reggie Wayne, tackle Richmond Webb, defensive tackle Vince Wilfork, guard Steve Wisniewski, safety Darren Woodson, and guard and tackle Marshall Yanda. So that's after the initial 167 nominees that were part of that list. And then, of course, what they're going to do is they're going to cut it down to 15 finalists. But I have to say, that's a pretty good class that got nominated this year.
It definitely is. But you know what? I think of all the players that are right now in the first round to actually get nominated into the Hall of Fame, I'm almost certain that Luke Kuechly and Eli Manning are getting in. As for
Yeah,
everyone else, it's just a guessing game.
right. I agree with that. I would say Kuechly and Manning definitely deserve to go in on the first ballot. I would also venture to say I would not be surprised if safety Rodney Harrison gets in because he had a hell of a career. Wouldn't be surprised potentially to see Steve Smith Sr. get in, but I think he's a little bit more of a crapshoot, honestly. But I would definitely say Harrison, I think, gets in. Anquan Bolden, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in. And I could potentially see Heinz Ward getting in just based on longevity that he had with the Steelers. So, I mean, those would be maybe the four I could see being the top in terms of going in there. But overall, I think this is a better class than last year, honestly.
Well, yeah. I mean, you also have some old timers on there, which is definitely something that a lot of those players in the 80s and 90s have come to. But there's also a lot of modern players in the NFL as well that are on that list from the last 10 years or so, which
Hmm.
were all great in their own right.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see. But I'm almost certain that Luke Kuechly and Eli Manning are going to lead the charge. It almost feels like, before we move on to hockey for a little bit, it almost feels like Eli Manning is a certain slam dunk to
Yeah.
get into the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, just like Peyton was on the first ballot. I mean, Eli, he won a couple Super Bowls also, and I mean, he basically made the Giants be a good team, and he was able to win games for them. So, I mean, absolutely, really solid QB for what he
I
was.
beg to, I beg to defer. I think the only reason why Eli Manning is going to the Hall of Fame to begin with is because of those two Super Bowls and beating the Patriots twice, which is, we'll be forever thankful for.
Right? Yeah.
But if you look at his stats, because I've watched Eli Manning
I
for
mean, he wasn't
15
as good as
years.
Peyton. I will tell you that, but he definitely was one of the better QBs in his time.
He was in his time frame, but if you look at his stats, they're just average. Any other year they were not in the Super Bowl. But Eli was also carried by a really elusive defense from the Giants within those 2 years. Because think of who they had in those two Super Bowls. They had Michael Strahan, they had Osi Umenyiora,
Hmm.
and then you also had guys like Victor Cruz on one end, and then on the other hand, you also had a really good run game with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw. You had all those guys as well. So
Hmm.
it's not to
He had
say
a
that
good
the
supporting
Giants
cast.
themselves, yeah, it's not even the fact the Giants are horrible. It's just that the team around him is what made Eli stand out.
Hmm.
Even when he had Saquon Barkley, which at that point Eli was on his last leg,
Yeah.
he wasn't even that great because I was actually at Eli Manning's last home game ever, like the season opener. I was at the very last one in 2019 against the Bills, and that
Hmm.
was in Allen's second year in the league, and Eli was
Yeah.
in his last season at that point.
Yeah, and he took a pretty big nosedive really quick, like especially the last 2, 3 years of his career. I mean, he definitely was a shell of himself. But as you mentioned, Strahan, awesome player in his time. Cruz, awesome player in his time. When you look at Umenyiora, same thing, a great player in his time. So they at least they did it the right way, where they built a good surrounding cast and they put that around him so he could be successful. But I would say overall, I mean, he was definitely not a bad QB by any means. And those two Super Bowls are definitely, I think, what puts him in. Other than that, if he was on any other team, and I hate to say this, if he was on the Bills at the time, he probably would have not had as good of a result overall and probably would have not even made it.
I agree. I think Eli would have really got trampled with that Buffalo team if he was actually on there, but it doesn't matter because again, Eli never had a consistent winning record. It's nothing like Peyton. Peyton had always had great
Oh
teams.
yeah, and
But
he
but
would put the team on his back, and he went in and won games.
yeah, that's what I mean. Peyton Manning was able to put the team on his back. Eli wasn't able to do it.
Right
That was a big thing.
now,
And the defense carried him to the Super Bowl
right.
all that time.
Right. Now, of course, Peyton's last Super Bowl, the defense really bailed his ass out because he was a shell of himself at that time, too, when Denver finally got the last one and he retired right after that.
Yeah, I
So,
remember that.
yeah. So very interesting. But, I mean, anything can happen at this point, and of course, we'll find out who the 15 are as we go forward. But with that being said, let's jump into hockey because I know we've got just about a half hour left or so. So, of course, if you want to jump on, feel free to give us a call, 929-205-6099. We're also live on YouTube, and we do have the live feed up on Facebook as well. And, of course, if you ever miss an episode and you want to rewatch anything, you can download us on Spotify as well. We do have the audio version of our shows up, and, of course, we're only 6 episodes away from 200. So, yeah, somehow the show actually made it to 200 episodes in the first 5 seasons. So we're glad, of course, that you guys keep watching and you keep joining us. But hockey has been very interesting over the last week, and of course, Sabres will play the Kings tonight, and that's a 10:30 Eastern time start. See what version of the Sabres we get. Levi has been sent down to Rochester to get some playing time in. So of course, now, as many of you know, UPL is going to be back. James Reimer is actually back with the team, so we do have that now. And then, based on that, how about the fact that the Boston Bruins have decided to fire Jim Montgomery? Why? Like, Boston, what are you thinking?
No fucking way did they really fire that guy. Like, I know it's real, but it's just, why fucking God?
Right. And even funnier, Joe Sacco is the interim coach.
Oh my God. And to think, just 2 years ago,
He had a
just to
great
think,
season.
2 years ago, the dude had quote unquote 65 regular season wins. And
Right.
you lose in seven to a team that was nowhere better than you. And you still choke in the playoffs.
Right. And the thing is, Montgomery's record was not absolutely horrible. It was 8-9. So he's just
Jesus
one game
Christ.
below 500.
You know what's really, really sad, Tom? Is all three of the nominees for the Jack Adams Award just a year ago in
Hmm.
2023, almost 2 years
Yeah,
ago?
they all got shit canned.
Yeah, they got chick canned. Dave Haxtell, I'm not sure where he is right now. Jim
Yeah.
Montgomery just got fired, and Lindy Ruff is the coach of the Sabres.
Right. After he got fired from the Devils.
Jesus Christmas. It's laughable that Jim
Oh.
Montgomery got axed because the boys club in Boston couldn't face the fucking music.
Right.
That their team is mediocre at this point.
Right. And here's the thing. Over 3 years, he had a 120, 41, and 23 record. So he had a 715 winning percentage.
Well, my only question is, was it Montgomery's system or was it just the entire team? Because
It's a good question.
yeah, because if you look at Jim Montgomery's record when he was, I believe, with Dallas, his teams were nowhere near the level that he had in Boston.
Right.
If you just look at those 2 years or the years that he was in Dallas, because he was a college hockey coach in Denver like a decade ago. If you look at his stats from Dallas and you compare that to Boston,
Oh,
they are
night,
nowhere near the
yeah,
same.
night and day difference.
Yeah, and again, this guy had David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron. He had Tuukka Rask at one point. Holy shit! This,
Yeah.
I mean, he had David Krejci. He had who else did he have on the Bruins? Jake DeBrusk before he left. He had Charlie McAvoy. The Boston Bruins were supposed to win the cup 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
look what happened.
Yeah. He had freaking Allmark even.
Yeah,
At
they
one
were up
point.
3-1 the series too. They were up 3 games to 1, and they blew that series.
Right. Boston.
And yet, your replacement is Joe Sacco. Jesus Christ. And the fact that dude played for the Islanders like 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
God.
Oh,
And I
wow.
believe he was an assistant for Ted Nolan 10 years ago.
Yeah, he was.
Oh my God.
Good
The
Lord.
Boston Bruins are nowhere near what they were all these years watching the Bruins throughout my entire adulthood. Ever since I became an adult at 18 years old, the Boston Bruins were always that one team that always had the right players, but they were never able to produce shit. And to think the Boston Bruins actually have a ring, not with Montgomery, of course, but just in general, ever since they went and got Montgomery because of that whole charade
Yeah.
or that drama with Claude Julien all those years ago, the Bruins have completely fucked up their entire scheme and their entire system. And then you go in and get somebody who has little to no coaching experience whatsoever. He's been an assistant coach, but he's never been a head coach. And you put all that pressure on him. Jesus Christ.
Right.
Why didn't the Bruins get someone that was available like Joel Quenneville? That would have been perfect.
Yeah, Quenville would have established instant credibility right out of the gate.
Jay
Hell,
Woodcroft.
yeah, same thing. He could have done that. Shit, you could have gotten Galan even, but then I don't think he would have meshed as well with that specific team. But even he's available.
The boys club. The
Yeah.
boys club in Boston just never fails to disappoint.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like you gotta do this.
Yeah, exactly. That's the boys
Yeah.
club.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens in Boston. So yeah, you deserve to suck at this point. And then, of course, one of the other things is that the Sabres actually may be looking for some players in the trade market or maybe looking to do some deals. Which, do I have any hope for anything? Not necessarily, but if Adams can prove me wrong, maybe we might actually do something here.
Well, Darren Dreger, of course, our favorite Canadian insider, went on Insider Trading and he says that, quote, that there is chatter around the NHL that when it comes to trade talk, which isn't unusual, but one team to keep an eye on is the Buffalo Sabres, who have been inconsistent so far this season, which is true.
Yeah.
And they've been engaged in more conversation than the average NHL GM. So when they say you're looking at the trade market, are you talking about Taylor Hall? Because we already talked about
Oh,
this. It
God,
was
I
a
don't
waste
want
of-
him back.
Yeah, he's a waste of time. He's a waste of oxygen. Why don't you get somebody who's actually going to help the team out? Like
Exactly.
someone that's available. Like I've heard rumors of Pasta, but that's never going to happen. So
Right. Yeah, I highly doubt he comes here.
You know what would be a great pickup, even though it's not likely going to happen,
Who's that?
is it would be someone like Marchessault or something like that. But the Predators just signed him, so they're not getting rid of him or anything
Right,
like that.
yeah, they're not going to do that anytime soon. But Marchessault actually would be a pretty good pickup. He certainly could be.
It would certain would be, but another team I also would keep an eye on for is the Islanders because if they continue to lose throughout the majority of the year, because you know
Hmm.
me, I always expect the
Yeah,
Islanders to do some sort of moves in the trade deadline. If they're below 500 by the time the trade deadline comes around in
yeah,
early
they'll
March,
fire Sal.
fires exactly. And then Brock Nelson will probably be on his way out because he is 32 years old, 33 years old. He's
Hmm.
getting up there in age. So Brock Nelson would be the perfect player for the Sabres to get. And I'm not saying that they should go full in like they did with El Poso, but what I'm saying is that they should at least, you know, inquire about him
Yeah,
if he were to become available, especially if Buffalo makes the playoffs, which again, it's 50-50. It's a very two-faced team. Right now, you could either get the better version of them or you could get the worst
yeah,
version
yeah.
of them.
They lose. Yeah, the worst version, you lose to fucking Montreal Canadiens. Best version of them, you beat the Florida Panthers.
Well, yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Sabres look into adjusting at the blue line because they can really use that help.
Hmm. Very true. Another team to even possibly watch for is potentially with Pittsburgh and how they might fire Sal at some point because right now they're not playing that well either. And the problem that they have, well, most of their team's older than hell, so of course that's one problem. But then you never know. Some of their players they may be looking to try and do some deals and get some cap space.
It's very possible, but Pittsburgh's got a very tight situation because there's been talk of buying out Eric Carlson at season's end.
Hmm.
There was talk about trading Gino, but he doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay
Yeah,
with Crosby.
yeah. Crosby ain't going anywhere.
I think Chris Letang has a really good shot to get traded. That's just me personally.
Right.
But
And
I think
and he has some good years left, uh, so potentially I don't see him necessarily coming to Buffalo, but I could see him going to a contender.
well, yeah. I mean, I already mentioned it. Marcus Peterson is one player that's available.
Hmm.
Brian Rust is another one that
Yeah.
could be on the move. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Penguins try to move Tristan Jarry. And Jesus
Oh
Christ, he's been
God.
horrible.
Yeah. Even after he got sent down in the conditioning assignment, he still sucks ass, and they've had to play Ned.
I think what really killed his vibes is signing that extension.
Well, yeah, because he turned a complete ass afterwards.
Yeah, and turn it to Rick DiPietro 2.0.
Oh God. Yeah. How'd you guys enjoy that 15 years of paying off his contract?
Fuck you.
Oh man, I still gotta throw that in there every now and then. But
Of course you do. Yeah, just
yeah,
just just poke the bear while you're at it.
yeah, exactly. But at least one good thing potentially is that the NHL salary cap could actually go up to 97 million. So I mean that gives some additional space to work with, and you know that's certainly a good thing. I mean it's going to help with everything going on. So that's a big plus. But how about the fact that apparently Atlanta is shovel ready for another NHL team for the third time now?
Atlanta.
Sweet Jesus.
Well, I have a better one. How about the fact that Alex Ovechkin is 27 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal scoring record,
Beautiful.
but Jack McBain can go fuck himself for going on a knee-on-knee collision with Ovi to shorten the streak.
What a dumbass.
Yeah, congratulations, Mr. McBain. You are the biggest dipshit in the NHL right now.
Yeah.
You legitimately tried to intentionally injure a Hall of Famer that's trying to break Gretzky's record, and you go
Right.
knee on knee like you're freaking All Samuelson. Who the fuck do you think you
Yeah,
are?
exactly. And you know what? And here's the thing 27 goals away. We're still early in the season. Ovi has a good shot of doing it this year.
I believe that too. But again, it wasn't his fault when then he got injured.
Right.
It was just that Utah got a little dirty and it's not right.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you have to just push forward. But I think once Ovi gets back,
Hmm.
it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, he should be able to do it. And he's had multiple gold games already this year. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to pull it off. And I definitely hope he does. I would love to see that before he retires, because it was great to see him finally get the Stanley Cup. He absolutely deserved winning that Stanley Cup a few years ago. Now, if he can break Gretzky's record, finally, we don't have to listen to fucking Gretzky talk about it.
Well, I think Gretzky wants him to break the record.
Good, I would hope so.
I think he wants him to break the record because let's face it, you and I have seen Ovi play for 20 plus years
Yeah.
now. He is so good in
Hmm.
every aspect.
Yeah.
But if Adam was here, he would argue, oh, he's not the best goal scorer of all time. It's Gretzky. And he would say, like, why do you think that is? And he says, because all of his shots, if you look at it, they're always on one timers or on power plays. He doesn't have the fucking gift like McDavid or Gretzky had. And I'm like, dude, Ovechkin is Ovechkin. You mean you can't
Yeah.
argue this.
Right. I mean, Ovechkin is in the right place at the right time. He knows how to score goals. He can score garbage goals. He can drop the gloves and fight people, and he's done that before. Hell, he's gotten misconducts before and gotten suspended before for different hits and fights and shit like that. So he's definitely like that complete player, and it's something that we don't see a ton of right now. But he is very good at what he does, and even though he has always played with the Caps, I respect the hell out of him for what he's done in his career, and he's a great player, and definitely I want him to get to that point. Now, the only player I could think of potentially in the long run that might be able to break the record after Ovi does it, maybe McDavid, but even then, who knows? I mean, McDavid's already been in the league almost 10 years.
Yeah, and he's already at 1,000 NHL points, and he's only been in the league for nearly 10 years already. He's been in the league now for 9 years.
God, I can't even believe that already.
I know,
To think
right?
him and Eichel have been in the league for like 9 years already. Oh my
And both
God,
of them are and both of them are in their late 20s.
that's crazy. And of
It is
course, Eichel,
crazy.
yeah, and Eichel has the cup lead at 1-0, but that's because he ended up being bought onto a Vegas team. So
Yeah, I just hate this Ovechkin versus Gretzky conversation because it's like you're comparing two different players from two different eras. Like, yeah, Gretzky was a very skilled player. Did he have the speed? Yes. Did he have the craftsmanship like McDavid? No. But he definitely was a hell of a player.
yeah,
And you also have to remember, Wayne Gretzky also played on an all-star team in the 80s with the
yes, he
Oilers.
did.
He had guys like Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Glenn Anderson, Grant Fuhr, Steve Smith. These are all
Yeah,
great
yeah,
players.
Grant Fuhrer. I mean, all-star player. I mean, great player in his time. And then, of course, he played with the LA Kings, and they were a great team in its time also.
Yeah, and again, Gretzky was surrounded by great talent in the 80s. But
Hmm.
the fact that people are comparing Ovi to his run with Gretzky. Gretzky is a great overall player by himself, but he made the Oilers a much better team, and they were able to win four Stanley Cups in the 80s just because of the fact of the All-Star caliber team.
Right.
Ovi never had that. Ovi had maybe a couple of few superstars here and there.
Yeah.
Like he always had Nicholas Backstrom, but he got injury rattled. And then you had guys like Alex Semin, who has been awful for them. And then recently, Evgeny Kuznetsov, who just went to the KHL, and he
Hmm.
was a great contributor for the Caps for many, many years.
Yeah.
Tom Wilson, he's a good
Yeah.
player, but is he a Hall of
Enforcer.
Famer? I mean, is he a Hall of Famer? No.
No.
But I'm just saying the Caps always surrounded Ovi with players that would get him over the top. It's just the fucking Penguins would always get in the way of it.
Right. And the thing is Ovi had to do more to carry the team on his back than
Oh,
what we
there it is.
had with the Penguins. I mean, that's how it was. The Penguins were built more top to bottom. Ovi was always the man in Washington, and he still is.
Yeah,
So,
and watch what's going to happen. When Ovi retires, the Caps are going to go from a sub 500 team. Like right now, they're playing great hockey. But once Ovi retires,
they're
game
going
over.
downhill real quick. Unless
The
they can
Penguins are
draft
in that.
someone that's like just as good as them, like right out of the gate, they're going to be a bottom basement team.
Yeah, and the Penguins are in this category right now.
Hmm.
Kyle Dubas, I feel like, set the Penguins up for failure even more because his ego was not in check in Toronto, and he brought that mentality with him to Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and he went from making this team into a rebuilding process to being older. So the Penguins are now suffering with Carlson's contract unless they buy him out. And then,
Yeah, and then they're going to be screwed for double the terms. So
yeah, and to think that this is the end of the line, most likely for Crosby and Malkin and Letang,
hmm
this is it for them at this point. And the fact that all three of them are currently on the team right now really speaks volume about the direction of the team.
yeah, yeah, it really does, and they're not going anywhere fast either. I mean, they've been absolute crap this season. So that's kind of where they're at. But you know what? We'll see when Ovi comes back. I have no doubt he is breaking that record. And it very likely could be this season. So it's going to be great hockey to watch, especially with him doing that. And it'll be great to see him take over that top spot over Gretzky. So I'm really looking forward to that and seeing how things will go. But you know what? I was going to say, since we're coming up almost to the top of the hour, let's jump into some baseball real quick. I mean, we have a few moments. So the Tampa Bay Rays, they are not playing at Tropicana Field this year. They're actually going to be playing in a minor league park known as Steinbrenner Field because of the fact that the roof can't be fixed in time. But even better, now their new stadium is up in the air because apparently there is a lack of commitment on the funding, and who knows, they may be going outside of Florida because right now, with the new home being up in the air, their current home not being fixed in time, that gives them the opportunity to possibly move to somewhere like Nashville or some other city.
Well, they also have to take into consideration that Hurricane Helene, I believe it was, or Hurricane
Yeah,
Milton. It was Milton. It was Hurricane Milton that took them out. But ever since Hurricane Milton, things have really went downhill for the Rays. So apparently, the Rays reportedly told the Pinellas County Commission that their planned new ballpark in St. Petersburg, which is across the street from Tropicana Field, by the way, is unlikely to be ready for the 2028 season, if at all, due to severe hurricane damage from Tropicana Field and political delays on financing.
hmm
This is a serious problem
yeah,
because the Rays, first off, I need to say something. The Rays are not going to go to Montreal. They tried this a few years ago during the
yeah.
pandemic
It didn't work.
because it didn't work out. And I don't think anybody in Montreal wants anything to do with Major League
No,
Baseball
and that
after how
state
the Expos.
and yeah, and that Olympic Stadium is ass anyways.
Well, it's not even about Olympic Stadium. It's the fact that the city got treated like shit
Right.
within the last couple of years before they moved to Washington.
Yeah,
So
and
that
they
was a
didn't
big
support the team.
factor. But then the question becomes, are you going to become the Rays? Because they technically approved the deal already to get the new stadium, but because of Hurricane Milton, things have completely changed and it got worse for the Rays. So
Yeah.
now it's going to get to a point where do the Rays actually leave Tampa or do they go someplace else permanently? Because this is going to become a big problem
It
for the
will.
Rays.
It will. And here's the problem. I mean, baseball honestly has not drawn well in Florida whatsoever. I mean, the Miami Marlins have crap attendance. The Tampa Bay Rays have crap attendance. Although Tampa has done better than Miami, but at the same time, those two teams don't draw fans at all in most cases. And here, Miami spends all these millions of dollars on a brand new stadium. Nobody still goes there because their absolute product sucks. And then Tampa, they have one of the worst stadiums in the entire league, and yet here they are. They keep fumbling around and they keep doing hot potato on different sites. One of the sites that they had was Ybor City, which was more in line with Tampa. And here's the thing: their fan base is actually more in that location, but yet for some reason, Ybor City didn't want the stadium, or at least what happened is they were being stubborn about it and decided, oh, let's build right next to Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg on the other side of the bay. And now
Yeah,
you have this going on.
and the worst part about this is St. Petersburg is the big county metropolitan area in Tampa. Like it's not in Tampa, mind you. Like it's not like where the Lightning play or where the Buccaneers play. The Rays are nowhere near those where those two teams
Yeah,
are.
yeah. I mean, Raymond James Stadium is right by the airport over in Tampa, and I've been by that, and I've actually seen that stadium before. Amalie Arena, where the Tampa Bay Lightning play, I've actually been outside of that building before when I was in Tampa back in 2010, and they have a huge draw right into downtown Tampa. So the fact that St. Pete on the other side of the bay, and you're paying to go to the other side of the bay because you have to take one of the toll causeways or one of the toll bridges, Sunshine Skyway Bridge, actually. I mean, it makes it inconvenient for baseball fans, and they haven't drawn very well ever since they've started in their existence back in the 90s. So it's one of those things I have to question. Why are they still looking to build a stadium in St. Pete when they can't draw there when their own internal information shows Ybor City, which is right in near downtown Tampa, is a much better spot? I mean,
Well,
it's almost like they're playing stupid again.
Well, it's not even. I don't think it's because they're playing stupid. I think it's because they don't have the political game like they did a few years ago. And with the Rays, within being in St. Petersburg, is the traffic. This is a big
Hmm.
problem because if you think about when you go on a 9 to 5 job, day, to go to work, like if you want to go home and take a shower and whatever, after a long day of work, you want to go see the Rays play. The issue is the traffic in Florida. Holy shit. And you
Yeah.
know this, I was in Miami in March and I
Oh,
went to the
traffic
Florida Panthers.
sucks in Florida. I mean, Miami's bad, Tampa's bad. I mean, to give you an idea, right by the airport, they're building a third Howard Franklin bridge. So, I mean, that's how bad it's become. They've had to widen it out again, and they've already done this two other times where they had to build two separate things. I mean, it's bad with how it's gotten right around that area and just the growth they've had. But at the same time, traffic is brutal there, especially during rush hour, and they don't have any public transit that you can really use to get to the stadium. They don't have a train system like we had in Seattle, where we were at the stadium in 10 minutes, even with having a ton of people on the train. It wasn't like Vancouver where we could just jump on the SkyTrain and we were right at Rogers Arena very easily, even with having a ton of people on prior to the game and after the game. It's not easy to get around Tampa, and that's one of the major problems that they have. But still, at the same time, when you're locating the stadium on the other side of the bay, away from your fans, that's another problem, and they still don't seem to realize that.
Yeah, and the other problem too with Major League Baseball is you're already dealing with one situation already with the A's moving out of Oakland and
Yeah,
then
to
temporarily
Vegas.
playing. Yeah, and temporarily, yeah, they're gonna go to Las Vegas, but temporarily they're playing in a outdoor minor league baseball stadium with no shade
Yeah, in
whatsoever
Sacramento.
in Sacramento. Now, imagine this situation. Imagine if the Rays were in this all together and they were
Mhm.
told, "Sorry, Rays, you can't play in Tampa anymore. You have to go to the Hal Steinbrenner ballpark in I don't know what part of Tampa it's in, but it's a
Yeah, it's
very
it's right
small."
by it's right by Raymond James Stadium. It's right by it's like closer to the airport.
Well, either way, the situation is very foreshadowing dire for the Rays. And the Rays, to me, I think deserve to stay. But I understand that the fan base is not all in on the idea of building a brand new glass stained stadium across the street from the old one. Like it works in Orchard Park because in Orchard
Hmm.
Park, it's in a suburban area. You're
Yeah,
talking about the Rays where you have a brand new stadium and you're building it across the street where you know damn well that the traffic in St. Petersburg is horrible to begin with. There's no way of getting out of it whatsoever, especially at standstill traffic. Jesus Christ. Can you
yeah,
imagine going to a Rays game and you have to just sit through standstill traffic? Because I know
yeah.
that's a
It's
big thing in the
nuts.
South.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. So, I mean, right now, who knows what's going to happen with that situation? But it's not a good situation if you're a Rays fan because of the fact that no one knows what's going to happen. So it may lead to a permanent move. It may not. I mean, we don't know. But really, one of the other things we want to talk about real quick too before we wrap up for the night, Juan Soto and the Mets are definitely talking, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
a big deal.
Oh yeah, and supposedly Juan Soto is easily the biggest name at free agent this year, and the chances of him going back to the Yankees is as low as 2% right now, unless the Yankees can runner up everybody else. Well, I mean, the Dodgers are in this conversation. The Yankees are in it, obviously. The Mets, who have been talked about for a while now, ever since the trade with Juan Soto going from the Padres to the Yankees, since last winter per se, has always been the talk of Soto to the Mets. That's
Hmm.
always been the argument. But then, according to Michael Kay, who is a big time sports announcer on WFAN with the Yankees and all that jazz.
Hmm.
He said the New York Mets are willing to go 50 plus million over what any other team is willing to pay for right now. And the supposed rumor is 10 years, $660 million. And another rumor that came out that at least I heard was 13 years, $702 million.
Damn. Well, we know one thing: the Wilpons, if they still own the team, they wouldn't be doing any of that. It wouldn't even be close.
That's a guarantee. The Wilpons in general would not even touch Juan Soto if they were still the owners. But
Yeah.
because the Wilpons are no longer in power, it doesn't matter. If Uncle Steve is willing to go over the luxury tax, as I remember, if you remember last year, they were willing to talk to Shohei Ohtani,
Yeah.
which unfortunately didn't work out. They were willing to bring him to New York, and he wanted to play in a big metropolitan city. But they were not willing to go over the luxury tax, and ultimately he got that massive extension
Yeah.
for
And he
700
got a
million.
World Series ring.
Yeah, and he got a World Series ring in the first year of this contract with the Dodgers. And now, because Juan Soto was available, I think the reason why, and you have to remember something, baseball is an age game. So if you look at the contract with Ohtani versus Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani is 31 right now. Okay. And he's got 9 more years on this current deal, which I'm thinking the Dodgers are going to handle anyway. They'll be
Right.
competitive for a while. Juan Soto is only 25. So if you pay him that much money at
Mm.
that age, that means that Juan Soto would sign a life-term contract with the Mets if it's 13 years or whatever the number is, and he's a Met for life at that point. The same thing with Bryce Harper with the Phillies and
Hmm.
Manny Machado with the Padres. It's
Right.
the same story. And if Juan Soto is committed to joining the Mets, then I'm all in for this idea.
Yeah.
But it has to be the right price. And again, if they're willing to go over the luxury tax just to bring him in, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Of
But
course.
but Otani is 30 years old already, 31, I should say. And Juan Soto's 25.
Hmm.
So this right here is a perfect opportunity for the Mets to jump in on this.
Yeah. And Soto's basically going right into his prime. So it's a great opportunity right there. Great timing on that. And then, of course, the Mets weren't done with that. They decided to go after Jose Siri, and he's been traded to the Mets.
Yep, and in return, the Rays are getting reliever Eric Orze, according to Anthony DiComo from MLB.com. So the one thing I've heard, because Rob is a Tampa Bay Rays fan as well as the Pirates, he said that it's a big loss on their depth chart, and he brings a lot of speed and is a center fielder. They could really use that. So it really works in the Mets' favor because they bring in speed and they bring in a lot of whip and then they're throwing in the outfield position. So that's going to be a big thing for the Mets. But I do, and again, this has nothing to do with relieving sorrow. But the thing I heard that was very interesting as of late was Siri and Soto had beef a few years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm like saying to myself, okay, are you trying to scare Soto away?
Yeah, really. Yeah, really.
Although I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to come down to the money because there's been players in the past, and I remember this happened with Leonard Fournette when he came to the Bills, where he had beef with, I think it was Deion Dawkins. Him and,
There was something with that at the time, and they managed to work together and
oh
squash it.
no,
So,
it was Shaq Lawson. It was Shaq Lawson. Because him and Leonard Fournette became teammates, I think, a year ago with the Bills,
mhm.
and they squandered the beef and they became really good buddies.
Yeah, and that's what's got to happen. I mean, especially if you're getting paid all that money. And then, last but not least, I mean, we know free agency is starting to heat up, but the 2024 Hall of Fame class candidates have been announced.
Yes. And before I do that as well, Pete Alonso has rejected a declining offer from the Mets, and he's going to hit the free agent market. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But as far as the ballot Hall of Famers for 2025, there's a pretty big list, and I'm sure you've heard half of these guys. You have Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Mark Buehrle, Carlos Gonzalez, who I loved on the Red Sox,
Yeah.
Curtis Granderson, King Felix Hernandez,
Yep.
Torrey Hunter, Adam Jones, Andrew Jones, Ian Kinsler, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, Dustin Pedroia. He was on the cover of MLB '09, I believe, or 10, whatever.
Yep.
Andy Pettit, Hanley Ramirez, Manny Ramirez, Fernando Rodney, Alex Rodriguez, Francisco Rodriguez, Jimmy Rollins, CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki,
Ooh.
Troy Tulowitzki, Chase Utley, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, David Wright, and Ben Zobrist.
Jesus. Well, no question. CC Sabathia gets in. I mean that's one thing I can tell you right off the bat, in my opinion. And then of course, I mean, looking back, Beltran, he was huge back in the day.
Oh yeah, Carlos Beltran was huge for the Mets.
Yeah.
Um, I think if anybody on this list deserves to get in the Hall of Fame is for one reason and one reason only is King Felix definitely deserves as a unanimous voter.
Hmm.
I'd say King Felix, and I'm gonna say Ichiro get into the Hall of Fame. Have you ever watched Ichiro play?
He's a great player. He did a lot of great stuff in his time.
Yeah, with the Mariners. And you have to remember something. Ichiro was the first international player from Japan to ever come over to North America to play in the major leagues. And it was a big deal because
Hmm.
Ichiro was the Japanese equivalent to Ken Griffey Jr. So
Right.
that was a big monumental thing with him.
Yeah.
So
And then, of course, I mean, we started seeing more and more Japanese players come over. I mean, and even besides Ichiro Suzuki, I mean, look at Hideo Nomo, who ended up playing with the Dodgers back then, and he was a great pitcher for a long time. And then, of course, he ended up playing with some other teams, but he was one of the big standouts. And if anyone's ever watched him wind up and pitch, I mean, that was a weird ass delivery he had, but he was effective.
yeah, Hideki Matsui, Godzilla, he was another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of solid players that have come over from overseas now. So it's definitely one of those things where he absolutely, I think, gets in, and rightfully so. He was a great player.
Absolutely. David Wright, the captain, I would love that, but I don't think he gets in yet. That's just me, and I'm trying not to be biased because I am a Mets fan. So, I don't think David Wright gets in this round. I'll be surprised if he does.
Hmm.
Who
A
else do we
Rod
have
would
on
probably
here?
get a popular vote.
He probably would. Ichiro, I mentioned. King Felix, I mentioned. I would not count out Manny Ramirez. Manny Ramirez was a great player for the Red
He
Sox in
was.
the early 2000s. Alex Rodriguez is no doubt on this list. My only grudge on A-Rod was the steroid use because
Yeah.
how is it that Alex Rodriguez is a nominee for the Hall of Fame, but not Barry Bonds?
Yeah, that's a good point. And we all know Barry Bonds was using steroids like no tomorrow because look at what happened when he went on that home run reign that he had. And everyone knows once he started taking steroids, look at how huge his head and his forearms got. I mean, he just bulked up.
Yeah, Alex Rodriguez did the same
Yep.
damn
Mark
thing.
McGuire, another one who used steroids.
Sammy Sosa, he was another
Yeah.
one too.
Yeah, remember when he had the cork bat? And
Oh
he ended
yeah,
up
I
getting
remember
that
that.
big suspension?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like some of the greatest hitters of all time in baseball, like ever. Is I went to
Mm.
Cooperstown last December, and the baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown is amazing to go to. So if you haven't checked it out, I suggest taking a day trip, drive downtown to the state because you're not far from it. Take a trip down to Cooperstown and take a look at
Yeah.
the major baseball Hall of Fame. Definitely
Yeah,
worth the
for
ride.
sure. For sure.
Um, CC Sabathia is another one. CC Sabathia, I think, definitely deserves to get in the Hall of Fame,
Hmm.
even though he fucking hated him on the Yankees for
Yeah,
so long.
yeah, but man, he was a dominant pitcher for a long time.
Yeah, but Beltron's another one.
Beltran was great.
Oh yeah, definitely. Beltron was great. Curtis Granderson was great too. I liked Grandy a
Hmm.
lot when he was on the Mets, but
Yeah,
unfortunately he was on the Yankees. Let's
yeah.
see.
Pettit's another great player.
Yep. Chase Utley,
Hmm.
Tulowitzki was on here. I would say so. The only one I think that doesn't deserve to make it into the Hall of Fame on this list to me is Jimmy Rollins. I don't think he
He
deserves to
doesn't
be in
stand
here.
out.
It's not that he doesn't stand out, it's that he was very overshadowed with, Ryan Howard on that '08 Phillies team when they won the World Series. But Jimmy Rollins was a big time player for that Phillies team in '08. So
Gotcha.
I would say that Bobby Brio is definitely overdue to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he
That's
should have
for
been in a
certain.
long time ago.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. But in general though, I think it's great to see that the class is really starting to pick up and and again, a lot of these guys are guys that I grew up watching. So
Yeah.
again, who the hell do I know, you know?
Right. Yeah, definitely good to see these guys get the nod and, definitely see them get some consideration. So absolutely great to see. But what I was going to say, yeah, we gave you a little bit of overtime this week as well, which is no big deal. We always like to do that. So we've been on for about an hour and 15. But I was going to say, any other things you want to talk about before we wrap up for the night?
Yes, actually. I actually want to talk about playoffs for a little bit for the Bills because there has been some things coming out about the standings wise for both AFC and NFC. Unless you want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, we can cover it real quick.
I mean, you did ask, is there anything you want to talk about? And I said yes.
Yeah.
As far as the playoffs go, if the
Mhm.
playoffs were to start today, as of November 20th, yeah, it's the 20th. So as of November 20th, if the playoffs were to start today, the Chiefs and the Lions would get the first overall spot, and then it would be at the fifth and fourth seed. For the AFC, it would be Chargers versus Texans, and then it would be Vikings versus Falcons. Six versus three would be Ravens and Steelers, and then the Packers and Cardinals. And then seven versus two would be the Broncos and the Bills, and then the Commanders and the Eagles.
Well, if it were to start today, I like the matchup with the Broncos. I mean, that would be that should be a game we would win.
I think so too. I mean, a lot of people have said I don't want to see the Bengals make the playoffs. I don't think they get in this year, honestly. I think it's
Yeah,
too late.
they're too inconsistent. They've had too many problems on offense. I mean, Burrow has not been that great this season. His wide receivers have not been that great this season, and of course, their run game has not been that great this season. Plus, their defense is not where it was. So, I don't,
No.
I don't think they make it. And if they barely make it, it would be probably seventh or eighth seed at best. But I honestly think they do slip because they do have a tougher schedule coming up.
They do. And if they were to make it into the playoffs, they would either play they would play either Kansas City or Buffalo. It would be one of those
Yeah,
two.
they're getting bounced either way. So that's how
Hell,
I
they
would
might even hell,
that's
they
how I
might
would
play
look at it.
Pittsburgh.
And even Pittsburgh would probably bounce them. So
Well, whatever it is,
yeah,
I'm not that confident. I know the Colts are still in the run for somehow.
yeah. I don't know how that's the case, but
We'll see. But that's pretty much it as far as what I wanted to talk about this week.
all right, good stuff, man. Well, of course, what we want to say to everyone who joined us tonight, of course, we're glad that you were here. Of course, feel free to check us out later in the week on Spotify, and of course, we'll be back next week. So until then, of course, as always, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you the next time. And I'm trying to think, there was maybe one other thing I was mentioning too. Oh yeah, Sabres and Kings tonight too. We'll have to see what actually ultimately happens, but hopefully we don't get the Montreal version of the Sabres because I really do not want to be seeing that again.
We'll see.
Yeah, very true. But at least UPL's back, so that's a big plus. Whether or not what happens with Tage Thompson remains to be seen. So of course we'll figure it out. But
Absolutely.
yeah. But of course, enjoy Thanksgiving. Be safe everybody. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.